Microphone on. Okay. So getting back to this, getting back to the syllabus. So, come on. Again, WEB170. Welcome to WEB170, everybody. Now that I'm recording, I have to say it back. So again, class, content management systems with WordPress, summer 2017, Monday, Wednesday, 1 p.m. to 3:50 in room. That should now be 3156. It is a 4-credit class, 44 class hours. So what we're going to do in this class is half lecture, half lab, or let's say 60%, 65% me doing a demo. In other words, I'm going to be building a WordPress site that I've built in the past over and over again, and you are going to be building a WordPress site along with me all quarter long, okay? This is not a client class. This is not a client class. You are not working on a client project in this class. You can use a client project as I have a thing that I'm going to build in this class, but I am by no means going to be talking about business goals and user needs kind of stuff in this class, right? This is strictly how to build a WordPress site with common functionality that is out there in the world, right? And building it from scratch, okay? So, so again, it's going to be about 60, 65% me doing the demos, and then we will have open lab time as well. I am, like I said, in the demos that I'm going to be doing in class is directly related to your assignments, right? So you may feel like I'm just kind of doing a simulation along with Mike. And if you feel like that, you're doing it correctly, okay? Meaning that this class, I wish Gracie was here right now when I'm saying this, I'll say it when she gets back. The way I teach this class is specifically as a prerequisite for the developers that are taking ITC 210, right? So how many of you are in Web 210 or ITC 210 this summer? Chiron, you are, right? Yeah, Web 210. Anybody else? Gracie is too. So she's a developer in the 210. So what she's going to have to do is she's going to have to build according to what the designers design using WordPress. Okay, so that's how I teach this class. Okay. So this course gives an overview of the basic principles and practices of professional website design and development while focusing on content management and custom theme creation using the open source technology of WordPress. Students will design and develop a website for a small to medium-sized business or their own portfolio site or a website about cats. Right? Dedicated to Satan. Doesn't matter. Just does not matter. Right? Just no inappropriate content. Okay. You may think Satan's inappropriate. This class will provide the student with a case study, a website portfolio piece to present to potential employers. Meaning, hey, look at me, I know how to do WordPress, hire me, right? So upon successful completion of WEB170, the student will be able to install and set up WordPress to a server, add and manage content through WordPress, use, customize, and create WordPress themes, use pre-existing themes, customize themes for some clients, right? But always be cautious about if somebody wants you to customize a pre-existing theme. How many of you have ever really dug into somebody else's code and screwed it all up? Right? Okay, so you can make a child theme from a pre-existing theme. The real fun is when a client says to you, we have this pre-existing theme and we want you to customize it and do all this stuff. And really, it would have been easier to develop something from scratch versus customize something that you spent more hours. Have any of you ever spent more hours trying to customize something that you've gotten versus building it from scratch?
Yes.
Not yes.
It's really not.
It's really, right. So you are probably going to be playing that game if you're going to do WordPress development out there, right, in the world. So there are clients that I've taken their pre-existing theme that they've bought and built multiple websites out of it. I felt like I had to wash my hands a lot after that, if you understand what I'm saying, right? But if I was charging the guy $60 an hour just to basically take this pre-existing theme and put content and get these websites up and running for him, and his checks cleared for thousands of dollars, right? I mean, I didn't have to wash my hands that much, right? I mean, basically I took showers with money, I threw it up, and I was like, eh, you know, kind of thing, right? But we're going to focus on how to create your own theme from a project. This is what I'm saying for small to medium-sized business. So what I recommend for you guys is, let's say it like this. Here's what I'm going to build along with you guys. So if you go to web170.premiumdw.com, which if we go to the choose your project site assignment, it is linked down here as an example. This is called a client staging area or a portal page or whatever you want to call it, okay? But basically what you guys are going to do is you need a pre-existing website that you have already designed and built, let's say in your Web 110 or Web 120 or Web 200, right? So for example, which one of my Web 200 students wants to be an example right now? Yeah? Let's actually, Gloria, can I make an example out of you? Okay, sorry, Ellie.
Oh.
You're not a student right now.
No worries, I was just.
Yeah, I know.
I left it up there, so.
Thanks. So in Web 200, this is the site that you did in Web 200. So what you can do is take this site that you did and convert it into a WordPress site where you would be deconstructing what you did here into, remember how in Web 200 I made you guys do templates and then build out a prototype? So what you would do here is take this ending prototype, turn it back into templates, and then build a WordPress theme, okay? So here's what I mean by, how do I make this back into a template type thing? Well, let's say, each one of these pages is, let's go with your about page, right? You've basically made these pages, okay? So if I want you to turn this back into a set of templates, meaning home page, main page, like we've done in the past, what you can do is basically go to your page source, copy this page source into its own new file, and start as a template from there. Does that make sense? Okay, we'll get into that here in a minute. So what I have done then is one that I'm using. Okay, so if we go to my little demo here. It's got some pages, it's got content. It's all running on top of WordPress, right? Meaning you see the WordPress folder here, and if I logged in, if I remember my password, ooh, first shot, that never happens. Okay. If I go to pages and edit my about page, this is the actual content that then shows up on this page. Okay. So we'll get into that in a little bit more down the road here. But what I want from you guys then is you need some kind of pre-existing something that you have designed and built to then build a WordPress site out of. So, like I said, your Web 110, your Web 120, if you've taken Web 200 or Web 120, those are the projects that make good, I've got something I can build with, okay? Meaning, if we look at my HCD 532, which is a class that I teach up at UW that's basically a real compressed Web 110 and Web 120 type class. If we go to the last lecture size and we view this, right? And we wait. It's basically a static site where I'm using about.php, services.php, portfolio.php, so on and so forth. In other words, each one of these is, if we go to view the code, whoops. Each one of these is a file that has the hand-coded content in it. It's got its includes, header and footer. Here's your header. Here's your footer, right? So far, it looks kind of like what you guys did in Web 200 or Web 120. True? Okay. Here's what this site now looks like after it's been converted to a WordPress site. So first, what I started off with was I converted that site back into home.html, right? In other words, what I did was open way too many tabs. But let's say if I went back to the about page, about.php, right? Let's say I wanted to make this into a template page that I could build a WordPress site out of. I would then view page source, select all this code, right? And make it into main.html, right? Meaning all the raw HTML links to the style sheets, links to jQuery, right? The flex slider function, so on and so forth, okay? And eventually, instead of things like about.php, where you see all this code here, we would be using page.php. Here's the content. Does that make any sense to you guys? In other words, this right here is programming in WordPress. If there are postings. Wow. Well, if there is a post object to be found. Wow, there are post objects to be found. Let's get the information from said post object, like the title, like the content, and while and if. Does that make sense? In a programming sense type of way? Okay. So getting back to then this, prerequisites, WEB170 and ITC 240. You need to know HTML and CSS, right? Pretty well. I'll help you with it here and there, but you need to know it pretty well. What you need to know from ITC 240 is things like, oh yeah, that's an if statement. That's an end if. I know how to do that, right? So if you know how to write conditional statements or conditional statements using conditions, right? You know how to write a variable with a value. You know how to use an echo statement and concatenate a variable inside of a string value. You know how to write a for each loop. You know how to use an associative array, so on and so forth, right? In other words, whoops. If we go back to this demo and we take a look at my functions.php, here's an associative array that we are using to pass arguments through. Here is then a function that we're writing a custom function that uses the post object, right? Here's a hint about WordPress. Everything in WordPress is a post object. Post objects have things like titles. In other words, when I say a post object, what I mean is, oh, you mean like a book, where a book has a title and an ISBN number? It's an object that has properties, right? Yes, that's what I mean, okay? So we are then going to do things like if, else, if, echo, so on and so forth. We are going to then use functions that pass arguments through it. We are going to use functions that pass multiple arguments using associative arrays, okay? So WordPress is its own framework. Okay, so getting back to this. Use, customize, create WordPress themes. Use, customize WordPress functions and loops. Here's a function that we wrote, or that we are going to write. This is the WordPress loop. This is a WordPress written function. This is a WordPress written function, okay? Required text, there's two of them. Visual Quick Start Guide, which basically is a book that when I build a WordPress site for somebody, this book makes a really good gift to use your WordPress site. WordPress or Web Designer's Guide to a WordPress Plan, Theme, Build, Launch. This is much more the how to write code, how to write your own theme. So between those two books match up really well with the lecture materials. Now, that being said, I've not taught this class in the summer before, okay? I've only taught this in the spring. Actually, I'm lying. I have taught this in the summer before, way back in 2009. It was a long time ago. And then since I was part-time and I could only do so many units per quarter, Raven took over teaching this class for a long time. So what I had to do yesterday was I took my spring schedule that all of the chapters for the books correspond to the lectures, etc. So what I had to do yesterday was I had to make my normal 11-week schedule into an 8-week schedule where I had to push and pull some lectures and stuff around. I didn't get to exactly mapping the books to chapters to exactly map to the lectures at this point in time. But you guys don't buy and read your books, do you?
Parts of them. I read them.
Anyhow, those are the two books. And I will make sure that I, like I said, I just did the summer schedule yesterday. I have to go and map the books to the lectures a little bit better. Okay. There is no final presentation in this class. You don't have to get up in front of class and say, look what I did, right? Because basically, again, what you're doing is you are taking a project that you've previously done, and here's going to be the misconception that you guys have. You are merely using that project as a template structure, right? You are not trying to solve your client's problems in this class. Let me repeat. You are not trying to solve your client's problems in this class. You are not trying to solve your client's problems in this class. You merely need a set of HTML pages, HTML, CSS, some JavaScript functionality, right, to build a WordPress site out of according to what I want you to do in this class. Does that make sense? So you are going to have, at the end of this class, a demo that has regular pages, pages that have sub-navigation, that have sub-pages, right? Unfortunately, my original demo doesn't have the drop-down menu in it. I just added that. So if we go to my template structure, in other words, what you need to do is you need to create a template structure that works in its entirety. I just added this given the issues that we were having in Web 200, David, et cetera, the drop-down menu thing, right?
Oh,
yeah. So I've integrated that because what happened was in the WordPress class when it came to doing your menu systems, people were having a hell of a time given what we were talking about. So I've now built that into my demo. So so you will then be building a multi-page site that has functionality like a quote over here, dynamically done quotes. You will be using a plugin for email. You will have blog postings that have featured images that go to the posting. so on and so forth, right? So if I then went and looked at this and went to edit the post, here's the title, here's the content, it is in the news category, it has its own featured image, it has its own excerpt. Remember when we talked about excerpts in the writing for the web class that you indeed did take, Jonathan?
Mm-hmm. Sure, that was like 3 summers ago.
Yeah, yeah. So Jonathan likes to harass me on Facebook, which I appreciate. That's cool, right? Just if you're going to harass me on Facebook,
Be prepared for it to be harassed back.
well, just, you know, so we were talking about single page websites, and I said we were talking about SEO on the single page websites, and he said something about the SEO, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, that's because a single page website doesn't contain a whole lot of answers. And Jonathan said, previously I had said I hate websites, because I do. I hate web. I hate the web. I hate websites. I don't want to be here. I just don't. But it's an easy way for me to make money. And I kind of get obsessed with it, and that's a different story. But then Jonathan said, I hate answers. And I said, well, that's apparent from your work in the WEB170 class, being the writing for the web class, where you have to write content. And Jonathan said, I didn't take that class. And I said, you actually did. And that was the last I heard from him on that thread. No, you did.
I did.
You did respond, didn't you?
Yeah. I said I knew that your lack of memory was a fake case.
It is. It is. I try to fake you guys out. I do. Right. I talk about drinking and being an alcoholic. Right. The only time I ever drink is at the end of the quarter parties. So
You haven't given your speech yet about people coming up to you in the hallway and saying.
not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet. Let me get to that. Okay. So getting back to then the syllabus. Required text, suggested text.
Thank you for suggesting the text.
Yeah. I have a copy of this in my office.
Not right now.
Emilio has the copy that's in my office, right? But this is, so when I learned PHP, I did like a lot of what you guys did. I reused code that I got, right? And I didn't feel like I understood really how it all worked. And that frustrated me. So I got a hold of this book and read it on vacation one year. Yep, that's the type of light reading I do on vacation, Jonathan, right?
See you sitting, like, actually, it's camping. I saw
Yeah.
photos about your campus purchase.
Yeah,
Dude.
I haven't bought it. I haven't bought it.
But I was just like, I pictured Mike being more of a pool guy, and now I'm a whole different view of Mike.
Yeah, well, I was a pool guy when I was in California,
Okay.
right?
All right.
Right?
Makes sense.
Yeah, camping though. Now,
Yeah.
yeah, I want to. So this is light reading for me right here. And so this book really, really got me to, because when I learned PHP and JavaScript, and even when I taught JavaScript way back in the day, right? I had never really learned foundational programming concepts. So I learned programming concepts through JavaScript, and we all know how that goes, right? And then I started applying those programming concepts to PHP, and it was a lot easier. And I built a website where I built a custom content management system with it, etc. But then I read this book, and it really, really went into basic programming concepts utilizing PHP. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing in here. We are going to be utilizing light programming concepts using PHP in this class. Okay, so have you been reading this book, Amelia? How do you like it?
I like your books.
Yeah. Required materials. You need some kind of hosting. Because here's how I'm going to grade. What I want to do, now I can pick on you, Ellie. You weren't off the hook. So week by week, you are going to be doing assignments, and I am going to week by week go to your staging area and view your proto site, meaning your WordPress site, according to the assignments that we're doing. I am going to go to your code week by week. Here's what Ellie has done wrong.
What?
Add files via upload. Add files via upload. Oh my God, you guys, use assignment names in your commits. Didn't I say like use assignment names in your commits?
No.
Oh yeah, I did.
No, you didn't.
Oh, I did. If I go through and see my comments on your site about,
I'm pretty sure.
really?
There's
Okay.
only one comment, and it was about just not having stuff up there.
Let's see. Front page, .php. So here's like this assignment right there. If I go history, oh, I need to sign in.
Unless I missed something. If you said it, I didn't see it.
Let's see. Because how I'm going to mark off assignments is I am going to go through I didn't. I don't know.
I saw it.
Yeah, let's go pick on somebody else. So,
Calvin.
hmm?
Pick on Calvin.
No. Frankie. Let's pick on Frankie. See, so he used the assignment name on his commit. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through your GitHub, and I am, maybe I didn't comment on this one. Let's see. Be really nice if I could find an example of what I'm trying to tell you guys. It's really embarrassing doing this. Well, I'm going to go through your code on GitHub, and I am going to comment, hey, I've marked you off for this assignment. Hey, I've marked you off for that assignment. Please do, when you are uploading your code to GitHub, because that's how I'm going to be grading, right? I am going to be going week by week when things are due. Close some of these. See, I do close my tabs after a while. Week by week, so I'm going to set up a summer 2017 page, and week by week, I am just going to go check your staging area, and I want to then, to start out with, see your templates, right? Your code is going to then have your templates in it. but I want to be able to view, I want to be able to view your front end site and your code on GitHub to mark you off. Does that make sense?
And like, just so I'm clear, you want the way that things are uploaded on the GitHub under assignment name, the way you've laid it out on your site. So by assignment, you want like assignment 4 create your content and menu system.
Yeah. So when you get to, like, let's say, create your theme from your template is probably the first one. Well, actually, the first one that you're actually going to be sending to GitHub is create your template files, right? So when you upload, how many of you have used GitHub? Okay. I will show you how to use it here in class when we get there. Okay. You can do it just via the web interface, GitHub desktop or command line in this class. Okay. You can just drag your stuff. I'm just going to be dragging stuff to the web interface in this class. Okay. But when you do drag stuff to the web interface to upload your code to GitHub, it will then tell you, or it'll show you where you can then add a commit name, right? And so what I want you to do is use the assignment name on your commits, right? Or something related to the assignment names. Because you might be, oh man, I got to commit this again, or, you know, I get it. There's going to be a little bit of discrepancy and a little bit of fudging here and there because you're still working on stuff. But what I don't want to see is a whole lot of uploaded via blah, 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 because I'm looking for the assignment name in your commits to go check you off to find that code for your assignment. Does that make sense? Okay. I should put on the assignments note to self.
Are you able to go back and change the name if you did it with the...
No. I don't think. Maybe. I don't. That's something I don't know. That's something you'll have to look at. It's a good question. But I should put a reminder on the assignment pages. Remember to use commit names, right? Okay. Going back to the syllabus. So to get to what Jonathan's point was. Evaluation methods. Assignments will create an overall class project to be presented at the end of the quarter. That's not true. That's from my other ones. I need to edit that. Assignments will require critical thinking, problem-solving skills. Assignments will be due according to the class schedule. Spring, I need to add summer in there. Students are responsible for assignment information on assignment pages. You're also responsible for assignment information given in class. Assignments will be marked down 25% for each week they're late. This is what Jonathan was talking about. So according to schedule, notice the asterisk here. Students must check the schedule before asking the instructor, when is this due? Because here's the thing. I don't know when things are due.
Just don't turn them in late.
Right. I have to look at my own schedule to see when things are due. I'm being serious when I say this. So if we are, don't get upset with me, Emilio. Don't make me swear. I'm trying not to swear, Emilio.
Somebody give you a bad review because of that?
Of swearing? Yes.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What are you talking about swearing? Rob, what's your name?
I don't know. It doesn't matter what my name
What's
is.
that name that you like being called?
Oh, Jonathan called me the Ron Jeremy of web design. And I didn't like that because I don't. Have you ever seen Ron Jeremy? Don't answer that question. It's a trick question. It's a trick question.
Don't even Google it.
Don't even Google it. Moving on from that. Yeah, somebody put less swear. Somebody told Lisa that I swear a lot. So I'm trying not to swear.
I mean, I'm trying not to, but
I know.
I swear more than you. So.
Yeah. So we're gonna try together.
Okay.
Okay. We're gonna
Okay.
try together.
Solidarity, that's great.
Yeah. So, and then another student was trying to get me fired because I swear. We'll talk about it later.
Oh,
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about. Here's the deal, right? If we're walking down the hallway and you ask me what to do this week, I don't know. What I would have to do is I would have to pull out my phone and check the schedule. So if I have to pull out my phone and check the schedule, that's going to lead to a lot of resentment. And I made a deal with myself a long time ago to not be dysfunctional anymore.
But why can't you like not have deadlines because you don't grade things on time?
That is a good question.
I would have
Because it's
such bad
college?
grades because you're the only teacher that gives me shit.
That what? That gives you shit for being late? Oh, no. No, if you would have had Raven, you would have not gotten credit on any late assignments.
I had Raven, that's true. Turn it in late? Nope.
I don't
Won't
have
even look
Raven,
at
I
it.
just have you all.
Right, we're not, this conversation, Emilio,
Am I getting you?
is over.
No, that.
So, Code of Ethics, all downloads provided by the site are the intellectual property of the respected authors that are available for example and resource purposes only. Students are expected to create their own design, produce their own work, and write their own code. Write their own code. Write their own code. Write their own code. Yeah. I understand just as well as you guys do that if you're using a plugin like FlexSlider or a Lightbox, you're using an application, right? However, if it comes to an application like CSS Menu Maker, this is the problem that we had. This is the problem that we had in WEB170, right? Was that students could not convert their menu system in here using the CSS Menu Maker thing because they didn't know how the CSS Menu Maker thing worked. So we ran into troubles of, I can't help you to get this work if you don't know how it works. That's what I mean by writing your own code, right? You are expected to know HTML and CSS in this class. If you have copied and pasted large chunks of HTML and CSS and you do not know how it works together, I am not going to help you with it. That's just my new policy, right? When it comes to then PHP, WordPress PHP in this class, it's going to be really tempting for you guys to just copy and paste stuff. Don't. Type it out. Huh?
You won't learn anything.
You won't learn
remember.
anything. You won't remember it.
Like that's how I was originally taught how to do stuff.
Right.
Was copy and paste and look at me now. Don't remember shit.
Right.
Mhm.
And I have told the dean, well, let's put it this way. When they hired me full-time at this college, and I was sitting in the interview with Chris Sullivan, the dean, and at the time, Wai Fong, the interim vice president of instruction. And Chris Sullivan asked me, well, what do you want to work on around here? My answer was, you know damn well what I want to work on around here, Chris. The copy and paste culture is killing us.
It's impossible to, I mean, it's great, it's fast, it's easy, but you don't understand what it does, how it works.
You're not going to get it. In other words, if you can't go up to a whiteboard and write out things in PHP, HTML, or CSS, you're not getting the job, right? So let's say it like this, that CSS Menu Maker thing. If I asked you, any one of you, to come up here and whiteboard how a drop-down menu works, could you do it? If the answer is no, you're not getting the job. Does that make sense? So that's the test. I don't expect you to whiteboard how FlexSlider works. Now, the triggering the FlexSlider function, writing that jQuery, yes, I would expect you. But I don't expect you to write something like this. Right? Because this is an application called FlexSlider. You're using an application. You're using a framework. Great, I get that, right? But what I do expect you to do is to be able to, if I then said, well, how do you trigger flex slider? Does anybody know what I mean by that? If you don't, here's what I mean. This. How do you trigger it? Window.load function. Access the class of flex slider, which is on a div tag, and trigger the flex slider function that is in that jQuery file. This, you need to be able to write out by hand. Here's a simple toggle menu. This, you need to be able to whiteboard. And then if I ask you, okay, great. Well, do you realize that if you do something like this, oh, here's the navigation. Yay. Open it, close it. Oh, where'd the navigation go? If I said whiteboard the solution to that, could you do it? Who could do that? Who could get close to whiteboarding the solution to that? Who knows why it's doing that?
Oh,
Jonathan, I want to hear why you think it's doing that.
You're talking about the hamburger menu being hidden. Like,
Well, let's put it this way.
or you're talking about the toggle on the hamburger menu, basically.
Whoops.
Why does it never turn the same screen?
Here's the navigation.
Right. Yep.
Okay, it's hidden now, right? Why?
Because we're in a smaller viewport.
Right. At whatever media query,
Yeah.
CSS is set to hide that.
Yeah.
If you're at then this media query, it's set to display, right? So if I hit this, open it and close it, and then we go back here, why is it hidden? Why is the navigation not there?
Because you told the mobile navigation to hide when it's
How?
on the view.
Does that make sense? How?
Yeah. So you,
So in other words, in the media query that originally had that hidden or shown, that was in an internal CSS or an external CSS file, right? How did triggering the menu to open or close with jQuery, what did that actually do? Does that make sense to you? It wrote an internal style. Let me show you. Because we have the same issue happening here, right? Navigation. No navigation. Same thing is happening. So if I refresh this and we inspect, okay? Navigation. If I hit that toggle, look what happened. Right. So the toggle function actually accesses that ID and writes in inline style to display none. So therefore, or display block. And if you close it, it writes it to display none. So therefore, when you get to here, it still says display none. How can in jQuery you solve that problem? Does that make sense to you? Jonathan, how would you solve that? Just brainstorm it. Pseudocode it in your head for me.
you'd want to write a function for
not window.load,
right.
not
on click.
okay, or let me just give you the answers, right? So if we look at my business site, oh God, I hate this site. It's back. Right, so if we refresh this, why are you not? Right, here it is, no inline style. Look what's happening though. At that media query, it's writing an inline style. At this media query, it's going back to normal. Open, close, open. Does that make sense? So what's actually happening then is, in a toggle menu like this, when we click the toggle icon, access the ID of navigation and perform the slide toggle function. Make sure you disable the href. Okay. When it comes to then the resize issue, window.resize function, if inner width 801 hide, else show. Now, this right there was to deal with an iOS 8 bug, where iOS 8 came along, and if you clicked on the navigation and then scrolled up the page, it triggered a vertical resize. Right. So on the Jet City Improv site, all of a sudden there was a bug when iOS 8 came out. And they called me and they're like, dude, the navigation has disappeared, what's going on? And I went, yeah, I've seen that. I don't know what's going on. I gotta go look into that. When I looked into it, it was like, oh, it's a vertical resize. Okay, so when this page loads, load the inner width, save the window load as a variable. If the load width is not equal to, right, meaning if it's still equal horizontally, don't trigger this function. If it's right horizontal, resize, trigger the function. This is what you need to know, right? So what I've seen is, guess what? That CSS menu maker, a couple years ago, people were using it in the 210 class when the iOS 8 bug came out. Guess what happened? The bug existed in the CSS menu maker. And I said, well, why don't you just fix it doing this? What was the student's answer? Well, I don't know how. Why? Because they didn't take the time to figure, this is going to get you a job. Using stuff like the CSS menu maker, as slick and sexy as it might be, if you don't know how it works and don't know how to edit things when things break like that, that's not going to get you a job, right? So that's what I mean by that. Does that make sense? So my new policy is, if you want me to help you fix bugs that are pre-existing something that you got from somewhere, my answer is no. I mean, it depends on what it is, right? But my answer is no. Does that make sense? Because I am determined to squash the copy and paste culture here completely. Because people like you are back because you didn't learn in the first place, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I did a draw in 2015 for other reasons, but now that I'm back,
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember everything.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm overloaded with,
Yeah.
really intense stuff because I took
Yeah.
the basics a long time ago.
Yeah,
But when I learned the basics, they did say copy and paste because that's what you're going to be doing in a job.
Yeah.
But things have changed because I got better about,
Yeah.
talking about getting your portfolio ready,
Yeah.
learning how to whiteboard,
Yeah.
like the interview process.
so
But still, copy and pasting is like really still taught.
like I said, I aim to squash it. So in my classes, if you come to me and want me to help you edit the WordPress loop, let's say, that you've copied and pasted, I can tell if you've copied and pasted my work specifically, right? In other words, Jonathan, you and I can be handed the same paragraph, right? And you and I can write out that paragraph with a pen. But after a while, your handwriting is very distinct and my handwriting is very distinct. I can tell that with code. Okay. So if I see that you're copying and pasting my stuff, I'll mention it to you once, right? But if you continue to do it, that is considered plagiarism. That's the thing, right? If you're copying and pasting big chunks of code, that's considered plagiarism to me. So, and like I said, in previous classes, whenever it gets to that drop-down stuff, sure enough, I have 3 or 4 students that can't get their drop-down menu to work because of the CSS menu maker, and they don't know how it works to begin with. And then I have to waste my time teaching them how that's supposed to work. Does that make sense?
So are you saying we're going to be doing a lot of drop-down menus?
No.
Or-
What I am saying is you are going to have to do a menu system that has drop-down in this class. And you have to then be able to get that to work. In other words, how we call the menu system in this class is through this function right here. Right? So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be using the WEB170 menu function, accessing theme location, giving it a container tag, giving it a container ID, and possibly an items record. Right? Where you're going to have to pass these arguments through a WordPress function. Right? So this is what I mean by, here's a WordPress function. Here's the argument system that they have set up. It's an associative array that basically what you're doing is you're rekeying an array, right? Meaning they have a default for the container ID, right? If you want to overwrite their default to the container ID, you use the container ID key and give it a value to overwrite it. That digs into their framework, parses how to do it, whatever PHP they've written, right, in their framework, to output a div tag with an ID of navigation, right? Does that make sense? So that's where, if you use this pre-existing CSS menu maker thing, you're going to butt up against, oh, but how do I get things to, I have stuff in my CSS file that is really, really specific. How do I get this to write that in there? And my answer is don't. Write your CSS to match up with what WordPress wants to kick out. But it's broken. Then fix it. I don't know how. That's the defining. I'm just using that as an example because it never fails. Every time I teach this class, there are 2, 3, sometimes 4 students that run up against that and they're stuck. And to me, it's basic CSS and HTML. and PHP, right? That is a prerequisite to this class. That's my point. Does that make sense? So then my answer to that is, instead of sitting down and being resentful and bitter that I'm having to teach you something you should have already learned, is just flat out say no.
Please don't do that.
I won't be mad at you, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I won't be mad at you if you've attempted to write your own code. I'll work with you all day on that. It's when students come to me and say, I got this thing from the internet and it does 90% of what I want it to do, but I can't get it to do that other 10%. Can you help me get it to do that other 10%? And I say, well, how does this 90% work? And they say, I don't know. And I say, that's why you can't get it to do the other 10%. That's the issue. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where, then, for instance, there are, what time is this class at? 3:50. Okay, we still have to. There are lots and lots of plugins in WordPress. Okay, for instance, what I did a long time ago was on my business site. Have you guys seen this site before? Yeah? Every time I bring it up on the screen, I'm going to pretend it's brand new and you've never seen it before. It's a thanks, Emilio. Okay, so in my services pages, what I wanted to do was I wanted to bring in a title, category, so a category, a title, a featured image, an excerpt, and a full story link to a blog posting. Okay. Let me log in here real quick, because what I'm kind of doing right now is I'm improving our lecture on what is WordPress. And I'm going to continue to go with that until I go back to the lecture. So that's the functionality I wanted. Okay. So a long time ago, the tendency is to, ooh, let's look for a plugin, right? And I fell into that trap myself. Let's look for a plugin. Well, sure enough, the plugin did 90%, 95% of what I wanted it to do, Jonathan, right? But it didn't allow me to put a link on the title or have a featured image or do that. So I was left with bringing the title, excerpt, etc. into another page, but I wanted it to link to that blog posting. So what did I do?
You probably tried to either rewrite the plugin, or
Exactly.
I think that was your.
You've heard this story before.
I also think.
Let's say it like this.
I remember being with Mark Pfaff as one of the TAs, and he was talking about this very thing about trying to rewrite a plugin that somebody had or wanted them to do for some client WordPress thing or whatever. And I remember you talking about that.
Yes. That's he spent more time bastardizing a pre-existing theme than if he would have did it from scratch. Yes. Okay. So it did 90% of what I wanted to do. So what I did was I went and I modified the plugin. Well, what happens if you modify a plugin? What if your client goes to update that plugin that you modified? The updates that you did, poof, bye-bye. Bye and bye. So this was a breakthrough for me right here. This piece of functionality that I wanted to know. So I had an epiphany. Holy shit. See, Gracie, right? You have to watch me.
Yeah. So what do we do?
Yeah. So anyway, I had an epiphany. this blog posting is a post object. Remember how I said everything is a post object? This post object has a category, case studies, a title, a web design development project workflow that works, a featured image, an excerpt, a handcrafted summary of this posting that's used for search engine optimization. And lastly, in WordPress world, permalink. Okay? So, here's the epiphany I had. Oh, I can go and get these and return them in the HTML that I want to. I don't need a plugin to do that. Why would I need a plugin to do that? So this was what really, years and years and years ago, really made me go, oh, okay. So here was my solution then. Get featured case study. So what I wanted to do was, oh yeah, this post also has an ID number, right? Which is the key if we're talking in database terms, right? Does that make sense? So what I wanted to do was I wanted to write functionality that then got the title, the category, the excerpt, the image, and the link, and wrote it out in the HTML that I desired, right? Then it comes to, this is the thing with my code. I try not to read my comments out loud. Ellie, as my TA, you might have to go through and clean up my comments on stuff. Huh?
They'll return it.
Yeah, yeah. So what then the thing was I needed to then have this function work off of an ID number. So I needed to, for this ID number of a post object, get the category, title, featured image, excerpt, and permalink. And then pass that through the page, meaning if on this page I want this case study, that one, and that one, but on this one, I want that one and that one, how do I do it? If we edit this page then, case study 442, case study 141. Okay? So this is short code. You cannot write PHP into the editor here. So what you do is you use short code to access this function, case study, ID. Okay, so if we then go back to this one, and let's say go here. If I edit this post now, it is post object 1054. So for post object 1054, go get the category, title, featured image, excerpt, and permalink. Once I discovered that, oh man, every page, every posting, every custom post type, every image is a post object, and it has an associative ID number. There isn't a property that I can't go and get for an ID number if that property exists. Does that make sense? To me, that really unlocked WordPress for me, where no, I don't need tons and tons of plugins to do everything. I need plugins to do things like write an XML sitemap. I need a plugin to, maybe I need a plugin to do the contact forms, but there's one that works really great, so I use it. But I don't need a plugin for every last everything. I can write that functionality myself, right? When it comes to getting images from Flickr to display, getting a blog posting to show up on a page, etc., right? You name it. Does that make sense? That trap. Oh, there's a plugin for everything. Then you can't customize the plugin, right? Or it doesn't do exactly what you want it to do. And then you don't understand what's actually happening. So if you start with this, and this is my gift to you, right? Like I said, this just unlocked WordPress for me. Because if we go to new and we want to add a new post, media, link, page, or a user, each one of those is actually a post object with an ID number that then has properties. So to me, I don't know if this is really object-oriented programming, but it's the basics of programming using objects and properties of objects, right? To where if we look at then the code, my posting equals get the post, my post ID, which equals my post ID, get the number that we're passing. So basically, my posting, get the title for the post object ID, get the category for the ID. Things are written a little bit differently given the scenario and given what you're doing, right? And sometimes you'll think to yourself, well, why does WordPress do it this way in that scenario, and why does WordPress do it that way in that scenario? And my answer to you is, how many of you can look at all your code over the years and think to yourself, I'm perfectly consistent everywhere? Right. Okay. But there's this thing called the Codex. So if I want to, let's say, look up how to get the post thumbnail, which is the featured image. We actually had a discussion at our TAC meeting about how to teach you guys how to Google things correctly the other day. Right. So what I try to do in this class is I try to teach you how to be WordPress's partner and understand how WordPress speaks. WordPress has a certain way of speaking, right? Meaning, when it comes to child and parent relationships especially, it wants to say the post parent instead of the children of. Let's say it like that. So if you know how WordPress talks, you can Google like WordPress talks, okay? But if you just look up get the post thumbnail function, right? Developer.wordpress or codex.wordpress. So it used to be just Codex, which is kind of encyclopedia. Talks about this function and what arguments it takes. The ID, the size, the attributes. You pass those arguments as arrays, possibly, right? So here, the post thumbnail for the page ID, size thumbnail. So you can then start to, how many of you have studied Spanish or German or another language like that, right? All of those that are English as a second language to you guys, you had to study how English actually worked. And when you studied how English actually worked, you kept on asking yourself, why do they do it this way there and that way there? Wait, I before E except after caffeine? I don't get it. Look at how caffeine is spelled. It's funny, because it's spelled I before E except after C, not in caffeine. And caffeine is a drug, so it was a drug joke. It's a long stretch, but I got there. So if you understand how then the language construct works, there's not anything that you can't understand about WordPress. And that's my goal instead of, so let's just say it like this. Now it's time to get into the, I've improv long enough. I'll improv all day long, if you let me. So what is WordPress, right? Well, WordPress is a powerful and fascinating open source project and content management system for bloggers, web designers, and developers. At this point in time, I want to say that 20 to 25% of websites run off WordPress, right? And what you missed while you were out earlier was I teach this class in terms of, we're going to do a simulation in this class, meaning you are going to do assignments according to what I want you to do, because these assignments that I want you to do in this class directly relate to what you're going to be doing in the 210 class. So this right here is, I've seen WordPress in terms of what I've done in my professional life and what students need to do in the 210 class according to client needs. And I've tried to bundle up all of this checklist of principles to go over in this class in a simulation style here, so that you can then use your fundamental knowledge here to then customize in that class. Does that make sense? Okay.
So I'm just going to be overloaded with work.
You're going to hate me, Gracie. Hate me. Again, there is whiskey in my office. And after 4:30, you can come in. You don't even have to say anything. If I'm in there, you can just dump some in your Diet Coke or your Coke and leave. And I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened.
Okay.
Okay? And nobody's going to tell on you. So WordPress is a state-of-the-art publishing platform with a focus on aesthetics, web standards, and usability. WordPress is both free and priceless at the same time. Or simply, WordPress is what you use when you want to work with your blogging software, not fight it. So people continuously say, oh, WordPress is a blogging platform software. And you know what? Yeah, it started off for bloggers. But how many of you have ever worked with Drupal or Joomla? How many of you have ever heard of Drupal or Joomla? Okay. Working with Drupal, oh my God. I was so used to being able to look up how you do stuff in WordPress. And when I went to work with Drupal, every time I looked something up, it led me to a forum of people talking about all kinds of stuff that nobody ever, like what I wanted when I wanted to look up functions was I wanted to see what arguments a function took and how to then do that in Drupal. And I just got nowhere really, really fast. And it was really, really frustrating. Okay? I've never worked with Joomla myself. But there's a reason why WordPress has the market share that it does, is that it's not only usable as a front-end tool for clients. Notice I didn't say user-friendly, because WordPress doesn't say, hello, Joe, would you like me to get you some coffee? It doesn't do that. That would be user-friendly, right? I wish my computer did that, you know, maybe we can buy some stuff together. But it's usable. It is a framework then that if you understand this as a developer, there's nothing you can't do in WordPress. There's no plugin that you can't build to snap into WordPress. So did I actually end up on the Spanish page here? Interesting. Let's go there. Yeah, they've been changing things to developer.wordpress. So sometimes we might get a little confused here, but there's nothing you can't look up to figure out how to do. So, what is a blog? Well, the term blog is a compound word formed from the words web and log. Woo! Right? So, how many of you have your own blog? How many of you have your own blog and write about your projects that you're doing here at Seattle Central? How many of you are going to start doing that? Right. Okay. All of you should, and if you do it where you start blogging now, right? You can always transfer that information to another domain under, and customize a new theme, etc. Right? So you may or may not want to start really talking about the projects you're doing right now. It might be in your best interest to just start, get a blog together on WordPress.com, right? We'll talk about that in a second. And then you can then transfer that to your own domain down the line, right? So why would you want a blog?
Showcase your experience and what you're capable of doing and what you're learning.
Correct. 3 letters. S. E. O. Right? So in other words, what?
Thank goodness you said O.
What'd you think I was going to say?
Your mic.
I'm trying to stop doing that. I'm trying to grow up. You thought I was going to say X.
You said it.
Don't trap me like that, Emilio.
I'm kidding you, Kurt.
SEO, okay? In other words, how many of you have ever had a client say, "Oh, get me found, man, do your SEO magic"? How many of you have ever had that? Anybody approach you about that? Anybody? Oh, it's creepy. It's creepy, right? Because there is no magic to SEO. I will show you how to engineer for search engine optimization in this class, right? But the magic behind SEO is, simply put, you need to know what keywords people are searching for, and you need to place them accordingly. Well, what does that actually look like? Well, one could argue that this tutorial about search engine optimization is a keyword-dense tutorial that has keywords placed in a certain manner, but this is a useful tutorial. In other words, how many of you have searched the web for stuff and came across a lot of stuff that was not useful? Everyone? The key to search engine optimization is to provide useful content that people are searching for. The key to search engine optimization is to provide useful content that people are searching for. How search engine optimization actually works is to provide useful content that people are searching for. In other words, Jonathan, answers. Right. Answers to people's questions. Because if somebody searches for responsive website grid tutorial, and they see this one, because it's a blog posting on this guy's website, Who's the expert at converting your old website to being a responsive website? 2 thumbs, this guy. So if then somebody comes, I've had people come across this article and send me an email. And if you send me an email using this link, the subject shows up as "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only help." So I know when people have clicked that and used their own email, you know. That, or they go to my contact page and they send me an email, okay? That is why you want to have a blog, right? So WordPress started off as a blogging software like that. But it kind of quickly grew into a full service website content management tool, because the way it was originally built, where everything is a post object that has properties, developers found very, very useful to develop with, right? Does that make sense? It's also a good way to keep your friends and family up to date on your activities. Beyond having a personal blog, right? It's great for business. It's just great for business. So all of you that are going to have a portfolio site down the line, how many of you have a portfolio site right now? Okay. I recommend that it be built on WordPress. I just do. So my school site is built using WordPress. My business site is WordPress. My personal blog is WordPress. They're all custom built themes. My personal blog actually started out as a pre-existing theme that had you can still see legacy portions of it. I found a theme that was like a desk, and it had this paper, right? And it had these little things for navigation. But over the years, I've completely torn this theme apart and rebuild it from the ground up, right? And it's taken me a long time to do that. So it's no longer really a pre-existing theme. It's a theme that I basically re-engineered, because the way that the CSS file and markup was it was horrendous. How many of you have ever looked at code and thought to yourself, wow, this is horrendous? It was kind of like that. But nonetheless, it was a great way for me to post my my cover letter for the job here, right? See, I was going for a web design position, and I wrote my cover letter on my website.
You look like a designer.
Yeah, this was some kind of a union event outside a while ago. So most blogs offer following features: automatic creation of web pages, formatting web pages based on predefined templates, the ability to include text, images, media, ability for readers to comment on and create discussion. We're not going to talk a whole lot about comments in this class, because I think that's the least important thing of this whole package. Right? Links to related sites, so etc. So WordPress allows you to, via a dashboard admin section, we're recording this. So those of you at home right now, that's Gracie with tape on the desk. So here is then this tutorial as a post-it, right? Where this kind of looks like, you know, a Microsoft Word application, right? You got your bold button there. You can make things into headings and whatnot. Everything you do here gets outputted as HTML that then accesses a CSS file.
So where's your file system? Would you modify a post?
It goes to a database. So we're going to get there.
It's like if you wanted most up-to-date code, your own code. Can't even ask questions. So.
Yeah. I think I know what you're getting at. It's a two-pronged answer that we're going to get to.
I have OCD, but I can't.
So where can you find WordPress? There are two different places. WordPress.com is where you can sign up for a blog on their servers and their place of residence, right? Just like, has anybody ever used Blogger? Or way back in the day, LiveJournal? Anybody?
I don't remember LiveJournal.
Yeah, LiveJournal.
Oh,
Right.
forever.
Right. Didn't Zuckerberg use LiveJournal way back in the day?
I think it was really big then.
Yeah. So this is where you can sign up for a blog on their servers, on their platforms. The thing is, you won't have any FTP access. You won't be able to modify any HTML or CSS on theirs. But it's a great place to get something started. You can even do your own domain. What we're going to do is we're going to go to wordpress.org, and we are actually going to download WordPress. So I previously opened Dreamweaver, or I thought I opened Dreamweaver. Dreamweaver better work, because I'm going to need it.
Are we going to Dreamweaver?
You can use whatever you want. I just typically use Dreamweaver because it has FTP. Maria? Maria? Is Dreamweaver working?
It's supposed to be.
Mine is. Yeah.
Can you log out and log in as a consumer?
I can't because I'm recording this.
Let me go find Robinson.
Okay.
I can't push it throughout right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, let's go to the other lecture where I have screenshots. So, the anatomy of WordPress. what is WordPress? How does it work? Where do the files go, etc. I don't think I have a screenshot. No, I don't. I usually rely on, hold on. Ooh, I have screenshots in here. There we go. Okay. So I usually open up Dreamweaver and show you where I have it installed on my server at that point in time. So basically, what we're going to do is you are going to download WordPress from wordpress.org and install it on your server space and hook it up to then, so you'll have it locally and remotely, okay? So basically WordPress is nothing more than a big zip file of PHP, HTML, CSS, JavaScript files. Right? That's all it is. The first rule about WordPress core. Do not with WordPress core. It's not swearing if you don't actually say the word out
I
loud.
just say do not work.
What? What did you?
Do not with WordPress core.
Oh,
I can't.
it's core files.
Do not mess with WordPress core. Do not edit WordPress core. And what I mean by that is the only file that you should ever edit in these sets of files, excluding the WP content folder, which we'll talk about in a while, is the config file. Okay? You are going to have to do, and this is why when you say the config file, it messes with me, because what I'm talking about is the config file in WordPress that connects to your database. Okay? So this is WordPress core. It's a big burrito of files, right? Second rule of WordPress core. Did I already talk about the second rule?
No, I'm assuming it's like 5 o'clock.
Correct. Don't mess with WordPress core. Okay. What you are going to be messing with is inside the WP content folder. Let's see if I can find a screenshot in one of my other lectures. Creating WordPress theme from a template. It's probably in there. No. Ooh, there it is. Okay. In the WP content folder, there is a themes folder. We are going to be building a theme. Okay. That theme then is originally you are going to have to make a home and main HTML files. that you are then going to build this theme out of. The third rule of WordPress core, there's a third rule, Jonathan. Do not upload WordPress core to GitHub. Only upload your theme and templates to GitHub. Do not upload WordPress to GitHub. Do not upload WordPress to GitHub. His name is Robert Paulson. No. Hi, Maria.
It's you.
It's me.
It's you.
Why? What did I do?
I don't know.
Keep in mind this is being recorded right now.
Hello. So there's an issue with the profiles, and Rob is aware of that, and
Okay.
he's working on it.
Okay.
My fix for you right now is that you're gonna have to stop recording and then start another recording.
Okay.
But log in as Open Central with this as the password.
So I don't need it so badly today that I'm going to have to do that.
Okay.
But Wednesday.
Wednesday, go ahead and do this unless I tell you differently. They're working on it, and it's a conflict with the Windows 10 anniversary and the update, which they had to do.
Okay.
And it caused some havoc with some people's profiles.
Okay.
This will work.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah.
I will keep you posted with everything
Yeah,
I learn.
okay.
I'm like at
Right.
every day.
I love you. Here's what I'm
I
saying.
know.
Here's what I'm saying. It's recording right now,
Yes.
and I'm going to say, I love you, Maria. You're my most favorite out of anybody here at Seattle Central.
See, and you guys, it's all recorded.
This is Maria from IT Services. Okay, so I'll check back in with you. I don't absolutely need it today.
I will let you know.
Okay.
Like I said, I do know it's a known issue. I'm
Okay.
working on it. And I asked him, and he said
Okay.
He doesn't know.
Okay.
We can get fixed while you're logged in.
Okay, and that's fine if you can get it working by Wednesday. If you can, yeah. Please let me know,
I will definitely let you know either way.
because I don't want to stop this bus because it'll blow up.
We don't want that. Committee's about that.
So in that then theme folder, that's where you are going to take your template files, main and home, right? And then slowly but surely build your theme out of that, where you are going to use then WordPress functions to link to your style sheet, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. That's for another day. But getting back to then, so again, what I typically do at this point in time is I open up Dreamweaver, I show you guys on the server, that kind of stuff. We will, you know.
Moment of Zen.
Yeah. I mean, really, what can you do about it? There's a reason why I'm shopping for that camper, Jonathan.
So you can work remotely.
You know, I mean, it'd be nice to take summers off eventually. Let's put it that way. And teach just fall, winter, spring, and not teach during the summer. That's my long-term goal down the line. Don't tell Lisa. Don't. Well, I've already told Lisa that. I know it's recording. I've already told Lisa that. But don't tell Lisa that that's why Mike went camper shopping. I'm afraid that if I go, I'm just not going to come back, Emilio. So anyhow, so getting back to then what we should be talking about. So the anatomy of a WordPress site. Basically, WordPress is broken into postings and pages, okay? It's more than that, but that's how we start to understand it, okay? Well, what does that mean? most WordPress sites are then broken into postings and pages, where what is a post versus a page? Well, a page is typically your static content. I don't really like calling it static content, but it's your main information architecture, right? Your about section, your services section, your portfolio section, your contact page, so on and so forth. Okay, so if I open up then, if I go to my dashboard here, we have pages and we have postings. So if we go to pages, you can see my client's page, about services, portfolio, contact, etc. Notice blog. Blog then is kind of an empty shell of a page. Welcome is my front page. So what typically happens when you first set up WordPress is your home page is your blog page. We'll talk about that in settings down the road, but let's just kind of go to it now. Where your front page, you can set it to display your latest postings or a static page. If you set it to display a static page like a regular home page, then you set your postings page to another page, okay? So pages are your, like I said, your information architecture, like we did in Web200. Your postings then are your blog timely content. Does that make any sense? Yes? Okay. Notice that each one of these I've written post ID, just like what I wrote up on the whiteboard here, where that post has an ID number and then has properties, right? Don't worry, those of you at home, I will take a picture of the whiteboard drawing and it'll be under my photo section, okay? So here is where then, see the services page? It's post ID number 185. So I can write a function to then get the children of page 185 if I so chose, right? But the long and the short of it is, at its root kind of functionality, you're going to be using posts and pages, right? Pages for your sitemap, your information architecture, postings for your blog, okay? And we'll talk more about that as time goes on. On Wednesday, we are, so you can go through, I mean, basically, you know, postings can have title, date, category, etc. So these are then, according to the screenshot here, what I should actually do is I'll integrate these two screenshots into my lecture down the road. Wednesday, we then are going to start off with installing WordPress to your server. So what you need to do by next week is you need to choose your project site and install and set up WordPress by the end of next week, okay? So what I need you to do for choosing your site is you need to set up a client staging area that basically you are going to link to your templates down the road. You are going to link to your working WordPress sites, and you are going to link to your GitHub repository. Does that make sense?
So we're creating just a website that's just basically going to be our
staging area. Because what I'm going to do then is I'm going to link to your staging areas from my summer 2017 page. And instead of you guys posting links on my site or turning things in paper, I am just going to, at random, whenever I feel like I want to get to it, Emilio, go and grade your assignments. I try to keep up as best as possible, Emilio. I do. I don't do that bad. I'm not super late on grading things. Don't bring Liz into this. I don't need Liz being more disappointed in me than she already is. Okay? The look she gives me, just the disappointment in her eyes with me, Emilio. Don't. Okay. So again, what I want you to do for your project then is eventually you're going to have to convert a project into a template system, home and main, right? Home page. Main page, and it's basically static HTML, no PHP.
You don't want PHP?
No, I want you to do raw HTML. So that's where if you already have a site broken into includes, view source, and that's where you can copy and paste the view source to go back to just put it back together. Yeah. Does that make sense? Because then what you're going to do is you are going to create your repository that at first is going to have main, home, and an original style sheet, and maybe your images and fonts and scripts, etc. That we are going to slowly but surely turn into a theme. Does that make sense?
Can I just use like my existing portfolio?
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Hell yeah, you can. Now, given that though, we are going to integrate things into the site that I want you to integrate into the site, like a flex slider, et cetera, et cetera. So if you are going to run into but I want my site to do this, do it eventually, but we're going to do things according to my assignment structure in this class. Okay? And hopefully you're going to like it, because it's going to help you with your 210 stuff.
Our site doesn't have to be limited to the same amount of pages if we want to do it.
Your site should contain, I want you to have an about page, I want you to have a contact page, a blog page, and then another section that has subpages. So home, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But the 6, 7, 8 can be, you're just going to use lorem ipsum text. I don't want real text at all, except for when you do your quote and the names of your pages. But besides that, it's going to be lorem ipsum text. We're just learning how to build your own theme, really. Learning how to set up a WordPress site. Like I said, I don't want to hear, but my client wants this, because I don't care about your client. No offense. Your client is nice, but I don't care about him. Does that make sense, Emilio? Any questions?
Where can find your deadline? I mean, for the homework. Where to find it? It's not in the syllabus.
So all assignments, Sue. So if you're on the home page, right? Take a look over here on all the assignments are right here.
Yeah, but it's no deadline, no this, no the due.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Due
No the
dates.
due on it.
So how I do things. All assignments are due by or before Friday of 3 p.m.
By Friday.
Yeah. So if I say due, choose your project site and install, set up WordPress, that is due Friday the 7th by 3 p.m.
Friday.
or Friday by midnight. I should actually put
Friday
midnight there.
is
Yeah,
better.
yeah, of that week. I'll change this to 11:59 p.m.
Right.
11:59 and 59 seconds.
Friday.
Quick question, Mike.
They're never quick, Jonathan. Why do you always say that?
Next Monday, we're holding class, correct? It's the day before 4th of July. There's no like cancellation holiday. It's on the schedule. I'm just making sure. Double check. Cool.
So it means all the homework I do on Friday.
I just want to make sure you weren't like taking off in a camper somewhere. For, like,
You never know, man. If I just don't show up. Seriously, dude, I almost drove it off the
I
lot.
believe you.
My wife and kids were gone this weekend. I was supposed to go with my wife and kids this weekend, but I needed some time to myself.
Mhm.
Jonathan, you'll understand what I'm
I already
talking.
understand.
You already understand? Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, you do. Okay.
Yeah.
Solidarity, man. You know what? You and I should be besties. We should go drink more often, even though I don't really drink. Look at that.
Holy water, Mike.
Yeah.
It's in honor of your
Yeah.
growing up.
Yeah. We should go hang out and be away from our families together.
Love the families.
Love them. Love them. Wife and kids, love them. Love them dearly. But dad needs some time to himself every now and again, right? Dad needs peace and quiet. So same thing. Mom went on vacation by herself weeks ago. So, you know. Anyhow, so I should have gone with them, but instead I went RV shopping. And I was like, I almost drove off the lot with it. I almost did. I almost did. But I thought to myself, I have not approved this with the wife. And when I told her I almost drove off the lot with it, her response, oh, that would have been funny. And I'm like, I will go back and get it right now. If I would have known that you would have been like, oh, haha, look what Mike bought, I would have done it.
What's funny too is when I saw the pictures, I was like, man, I didn't picture Mike as a camper, and then secondly, if I did picture you as a camper, I would have said Airstream.
Oh yeah,
Just
totally,
for the-
totally. Yeah. But this is, you know, I mean, I'd love to find an old Airstream, you know, really, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Those have kind of become like cheap.
Although, yeah, but they're heavier than I think my truck can pull too.
Yeah.
Where this one was 3,700 pounds, and my truck can tow a max at 3,500 pounds,
Okay.
so I can get away with it.
So you don't want to buy a small tiny
A livable Airstream starts at 60.
No.
What?
60.
So,
Okay.
this is what we do. We hold therapy sessions for you sometimes. You know. Okay. You seem like you're.
My friends have a truck and trailer and they leave it just sitting there.
Yeah. Nice. All right. How should we sign off today?
So you don't have the midterm.
That extra assignment.